Of all the Silent Hill games, I find Silent Hill Homecoming to be narratively the weakest. It attempts too many things it doesn't fully develop. It has too many unrelated pieces that don't fit into a coherent whole. But as an overall experience, I still really enjoy the game, and I think if it didn't have that titular town in its title, it wouldn't be seen so derisively by so many fans of horror. If any of the Western games need a remake, I think it's this one. Homecoming has a lot of unique ideas that could be better fleshed out and made into something really grand, with just a little trimming of the fat. The main problem is the protagonist. Alex is not a well-developed character. We are told a lot of things about him, but we don't feel these things. He was supposed to have been in a mental hospital for years. He believes he was at war all that time. Yet nothing in his behavior reflects either of these things, besides the fact that he can fight. He acts like a relatively normal guy, not a man who was emotionally abused and ignored by his family for years, or one who was trapped in an abusive hospital for years. Unlike James in 2, who definitely acts weird and clearly has emotional damage, Homecoming just tells us Alex is damaged without presenting it in his behavior or personality. It feels like this whole soldier idea was slapped onto the character as an explanation for the game's heavy combat focus, but it's unnecessary. You don't need to give me a reason why there's fighting in the game. Just write a good story with an interesting main character, which Alex had the potential to be with his background. They just failed to make that background feel relevant because of how average Alex's personality is. Ultimately, the reveal of his real past takes away from the true mystery of the cult and Joshua and his fate. That, on top of the general lack of personality in Alex and his sidekick Elle, are the weakest portions of the game. That is not to say the game is irredeemable. The strength of Homecoming is found in its outer reaches, in its lore and world-building beneath the nightmarish hellscape. The four families of Shepherd's Glen, the town's people and their sins, are interwoven into the puzzles and environments of the game in a really lovely way. And the game has some fantastic antagonists because of it. Let's explore the themes and motifs of Silent Hill Homecoming, and perhaps you'll find a new appreciation for the ugly duckling of the Silent Hill series. The story begins in a dream. Alex, strapped down to a gurney and being wheeled into an operating theater. They pass strange, dark rooms full of nightmarish visions, echoes of the fate of the other children of Shepherd's Glen. The doctor pushing Alex is his father, who is attacked by the Boogeyman, our Pyramid Head knockoff, and torn in half. Alex then has to explore the hospital, searching for the other half of the doctor's body. Division is a central theme throughout the game, and it starts here as we search for the missing half of a body and half a torn X-ray to reveal a code. It opens the prison gate separating Alex from his brother. But Joshua runs away, another repeating motif in the game. Separation via doors and distance. A brother who does not reach out, but runs off. There's an impossible distance between Alex and his kin, and he does not fully understand why yet. Joshua and Alex are a pair of brothers destined for a terrible fate, much like a certain pair of brothers in the Bible. We'll discuss that later. The name Joshua has a root in the Hebrew name Yeshua. That root is the same source of the English spelling of the name Jesus, making Joshua himself a Christ-like figure. He is a sacrifice, an unintended one, but one whose death sets others free. In a note discussing the establishment of Shepherd's Glen, it stated that no one living in the town shall speak against the resurrection, likely referring to the creation of the town, which they see as a rebirth of the true way. Even the establishment of Shepherd's Glen is discussed with Christ-like imagery, and the one who is saved by Joshua's death is his brother, Alex. Room 206 in the hospital dream has a picture from Joshua on it. Behind the door, you can hear the rolling waves of Toluca Lake. Further down the hall, the dream ends as Alex is awakened by the presence of the boogeyman. While clearly a derivation of Pyramid Head from Silent Hill 2, the name Boogeyman implies an origin as a figure out of children's nightmares, the monster under the bed. And this is a story about monsters and children. In this story, the monsters they fear are the parents who raised them, and the children's deaths turn them into boogeymen themselves. A note found in the hospital says that the patient in room 206 is scheduled for a lobotomy. The opening of the dream, in which Alex is tied down and being wheeled into an operating theater, may reflect the real world he escaped from, narrowly avoiding a terrible, permanently damaging procedure. His time in the hospital was likely a torment, though unfortunately we don't see much of that reflected in the narrative. The number 206 also happens to be the same number as 206, the time when Joshua was killed. When Alex awakes, he is riding along in a truck with Travis Grady, returning home to Shepherd's Glen, a town he shares a name with. Shepherds are a constant figure throughout the Christian Bible. Many of the most famous figures in those stories are shepherds, and the term is used to refer to Christ, to God, and to Christian priests. Shepherds guide their people. They protect and keep them safe. Yet the shepherd family are not protectors at all. Some are to be killed by their own blood, like the Cain and Abel of old. Alex has been gone for 4 years, and he believes he was a soldier and is returning home from war. In reality, he was in a hospital, recovering from his mental break after Joshua's death. Personally, I think the setup here, in many ways similar to Silent Hill 2 but poorly done, would have been improved if Alex simply had amnesia, if he did not remember why he was away from home for so long, but felt he had to return and was drawn home for a desperate reason. It leaves a bit of mystery, creates a sense of unease, without setting up the kind of false memory reveal from 2 that can only feel derivative when it's done this poorly. Homecoming doesn't dedicate enough time to making Alex feel like he believes he is a soldier, so we really don't believe it either, and the final reveal feels obvious instead of surprising. My personal interpretation leans towards imagining most, if not all, of Alex's experience as a terrible nightmare, a series of visions in the unreal world after Joshua's death, similar in some ways to the first Silent Hill, in which Harry falls asleep and wakes up elsewhere, constantly shifting between realities. The opening dream sequence and Travis Grady's appearance, a character from the past who perhaps died or never escaped Silent Hill, reinforces the dream-like feeling. Alex enters town, meets with the ominous Judge Holloway, and returns home. There he reunites with his mother, a strangely broken woman, whose behavior gives the environment a very eerie, off feeling. Her name is Lillian, a name that comes from the Latin lilium for lily. The lily is the symbol of the Virgin Mary, associated heavily with the resurrection of Christ and the holiday of Easter. It is a flower of innocence and purity. At the same time, the name Lillian, especially when paired with Adam, her husband, calls to mind a different figure, Lilith, the demoness of Hebrew folklore, first wife of the first man, Adam, who was mother to all the world's demons. A woman who is both Mary, mother of God, and Lilith, mother of demons. A mother who is an angel to one child and a monster to the other, divided between her roles, wearing masks to hide her true feelings. She and her husband are living in a twisted Garden of Eden, whose roots are rotting. The woman appears to be wet, and there are wet footprints from the basement into the central room. Why is the basement flooded, and why does it appear that our mother was down there? No explanation is given, but it clearly ties into the watery fate of her children. Was Lillian attempting to experience what Joshua felt, surrounded by all that water? Either way, this is only the first time water will become an obstacle for Alex, a thematic reminder of the water he was meant to be condemned to, the water that took his brother. Collecting a few more items around the area unlocks the way forward in the backyard of the Shepherd house. The next area is Rose Heights Cemetery, where Alex will see the mayor obsessively digging graves. To move forward, he must find another split object, a stone circle with a tree design split down the middle of the tree. The story is centered on a schism, a divide between religious groups, and the divisions within families which occur because of it. Joshua and Alex are turned into rivals against one another. Parents are turned against their children. In all of this, the family leaders are divided in their feelings, torn between adhering to tradition and responsibility and their love for their child. This division is often tied into the imagery of trees which appear throughout the game. In the graveyard, a pair of 2 trees are planted above the graves of a pair of twin girls. To solve the gate puzzle, the player must find these graves and retrieve the stone plate halves from them. The association between the families and trees is heightened as we explore the area and find the family crypts throughout them. Notably, the Shepherd family crypt is not here. Families are described as trees in Western society. Here we have trees split, roots spreading throughout the town. In this town, tradition has families cutting down their own trees, tearing off their own limbs and roots, destroying themselves. In Christian tradition, the tree is a symbol tied heavily into the Garden of Eden and the fall of man. It was the tree which provided the apple, and it was Adam's taking of the apple which condemned mankind. Alex's father is named Adam, and it is his actions in the game which condemn the whole town, and his behavior towards his sons which damns them both. The association with the Garden of Eden is furthered by the Founder's Garden, which leads into the rest of town. In the next area, Alex is reunited with Elle Holloway, his childhood sweetheart. She stands at a billboard which is covered in dozens of missing people posters, an explanation of why the town feels so empty. From here, Alex moves to the scrapyard and meets Curtis Ackers. After having seen so many people are missing from town, and having met monsters ourselves, the strangely normal behavior of Curtis is off-putting and surreal. It's our first hint that something is wrong with Curtis. He isn't bothered by what's happening. A photo of Curtis can be found near the missing person's board. A note on it says, "I don't like him." It associates Curtis with the missing people and hints at his vile behavior. Curtis mentions the clocks, all stopped at 2:06, a number we first saw in the hospital dream, and he isn't able to fix any of them. It's another eerie hint. Time has stopped in Shepherd's Glen. Something terrible has happened that has wrecked the fabric of reality, and it happened at a very specific time. Alex returns to the cemetery in order to find the Bartlett Mausoleum. The conversation with Curtis revealed the man digging graves is Mayor Bartlett. The entire area has been building up to a confrontation with him and his sins. The graves, holes with bodies in the ground, the man obsessed with digging them, the clock permanently stopped, the way a person's time is ended when they are buried and dead. Though we don't know it yet, all of this ties into the fate of the first of Shepherd's Glen's missing children. A puzzle blocks the way. Once Alex solves it, the coffin opens, revealing there's no body, another hint that something terrible has happened to the children. They are dead, and their bodies are not where they belong. Inside is a watch, also stopped at 2:06, and Alex suddenly starts to collapse as he hears a terrible sound. Once again, we are entering a dream, and in the dream, entering Silent Hill. Once he is in the dream, Alex sees Joshua again. The spirit of his brother seems capable of reaching him in this between place. Now we are entering the Grand Hotel. Its connection to the Bartlett family becomes clear through notes found inside. Sam Bartlett was working to restore the atrium, the garden in the hotel, and also started having an affair with the wife of a terminally ill man who was staying here. Inside, there is a garden. Sam was apparently seen dragging a strange bag of fertilizer here. Since we know where the bodies of the children are by the end of the game, it's obvious Joey's body is not here, but this may be where he was killed. Possibly he was drugged and knocked unconscious elsewhere before being dragged to this garden and buried alive. It's possible the places in these dream states are the locations of the children's deaths, which is what transforms them into nightmares. Joey loved gardens according to his father, and his death had to be by live burial. Where better than a garden to do it, and a place people are accustomed to seeing the Bartletts. Sam is short for Samuel, and Joey's short for Joseph, both biblical names. Samuel in the Bible was named by his mother because she had prayed for a son and finally had one, the name meaning God has placed. Joseph in the Hebrew Bible was the favored son of his father. Out of jealousy, his brothers sold him into slavery. One is named for a son who was wanted, another for a son who was betrayed. Inside the hotel, Alex must use his knife to cut in half, to divide, the painting of a woman in a veil holding white flowers. It is part of a painting seen in full later on, but the image on its own calls to mind Alex's mother, the woman whose name means lily, white flowers. This section of game involves Alex speaking to a disembodied female voice, helping her to retrieve her mementos and thus set her spirit free. It's likely intended to be Carol, the woman Sam Bartlett was having an affair with. I've explained in another video my own interpretation of this entire scenario, connecting it to Silent Hill 2. While it's likely not the intended explanation, I like my version best. It also appears in an area with a painting associated with Alex's mother, and later a disembodied voice of Adam Shepard will also appear before Alex. This female voice may well relate to his mother, to her feelings of guilt as she betrays someone she loves. The Boogeyman appears in this area again. In a similar way to Pyramid Head in 2, Boogeyman acts as a guide through the environment. The way he walks is the way Alex needs to go, and unlike James in 2, Alex is never attacked by the Boogeyman. It's a subtle hint as to the nature of the monsters in this game. Certain creatures are embodiments of vengeance, aimed at the parents of the children who are murdered. Boogeyman is related to Alex, and we will see more of it later. Alex catches up with Joshua, only to fall into a gap in the floor, unable to reach him. From that hole, he falls further into the hotel. It's a parallel to Joey's fate, falling into a hole into the earth. This is where we will enter the garden and find the mayor, and force him to face the truth. There are some very obvious ties to the Silent Hill film in Homecoming. Regardless of your feelings about its story, the film has some beautiful visuals and incredible monsters. And as the film is what introduced me to the Silent Hill series, I am fond of it, messy as it is. An interesting connection between the film and Homecoming is the method of revealing the truth, which is used in the film in the final confrontation. Our protagonist must sneak the vengeful demon into the church and make those inside question their faith, their version of reality, opening them to the idea they could be guilty. The crack in the foundation opens the door for monsters to enter, and the injured to receive justice. Alex does the same thing, presenting the parents with a memento of their child, questioning them on the fate of the kids, demanding they remember and face the truth. In doing so, something seems to crack inside them, and from the darkness a monstrous version of their child rises, one they seem to acknowledge as theirs. Here, Sam begs for mercy as the tree in the garden is uprooted and becomes a monster. His begging is ignored, and he is slammed into the earth he buried his son in by a monstrous hand. The creature hanging from the garden is named sepulcher, a word referring to a kind of grave, a word often used to refer to the grave of Christ during the 3 days before his return. The body is hanging upside down. Perhaps the real Joey, when he was buried in that bag, was also buried upside down. Cocoons line the outer edge of the arena, mimicking the body bag Joey was buried in, and they must be struck to knock the creature down. Once it is defeated, the ground collapses and Sepulcher disappears back into the earth. Alex, falling unconscious, goes with it, and awakens in the real world, locked in a prison cell in the police station. Here we meet Deputy Wheeler, one of the few normal people still in town. The two agree to work together to escape and find others. There's not much to do but fight inside the station. though there is a safe whose code is the rather obvious 206. The clue to the code: only time will tell who has the will to live. Time being the time the town is frozen in. Here, a monstrous Siam, a creature of two bodies, male and female, fused in one, will attack. The female is attached to the back, unable to influence the monster. The male is active and ferocious, attacking wildly. It is Alex's parents, his commanding father and submissive mother, bound together in one monster. The female isn't innocent in this. She is carried along because she is not fighting her fate. Lillian Shepard also didn't fight, and her children suffered for her submissiveness. The next level is another one centered on water. The sewers. Elle and Alex work together to navigate them, until Elle is attacked and disappears like so many others. Exiting the sewers, Alex will find he's back at his house, though he cannot enter. Barbed wire now covers the door. Instead, the next level centers on another family of the cult, the Fitches, and the doctor's office, which was home to Martin Fitch's practice. If you explore town a little, you can find a few things in the town hall. A portrait of Alex's ancestor, Isaac Shepard, can be found in a locked room. For some reason, it's been removed from the town hall, implying something the Shepards have done has angered the other families. The name Isaac is also biblical. From the Binding of Isaac, the story in which God tests Abraham's faith and asks him to sacrifice his own child. The next level is the doctor's office, where Alex once again falls unconscious upon finding Scarlet's doll. The world transforms into Hell's Descent, an area with no map, just a long winding tunnel into the darkness. Fire belongs to the Fitch family, and it is found throughout the level belonging to Martin and Scarlet Fitch. The last name comes from a term meaning iron point or iron implement, referring to the small object Martin uses to cut himself and to kill his child. In Western magic traditions, cutting represents the element of fire because of the burning pain that it can cause. The name Hell's Descent also comes from Christian tradition, the descent of Christ into hell. The idea that between the crucifixion and the resurrection, Jesus descended into hell to bring salvation to the damned. The particular use of the word descent here, and Martin's horrid state, tormenting himself, grieving his daughter, leads us to see this descent as just such a journey to set a damned soul free. At the bottom of the descent, we find that damned soul, Martin Fitch. His first name, Martin, comes from Martinus, Mars, the god of war, a god of red blood. Scarlet, too, is a name referring to blood. But in Christian tradition, it is also the color worn by Catholic cardinals to represent the blood of Christian martyrs. Scarlet is killed in the doctor's office. There's a bedroom there, and on the bed we see a horrid shadow of what looks like a small girl, arms pulled out as if tied down. It's likely Martin tied the girl down there and began to cut, slicing her to pieces until she bled to death. In monster form, she is a giant porcelain doll whose outer skin must be hacked off to be defeated, in a similar manner to her death. Unlike the other parents, Martin does not suffer long. Scarlet's monster form cradles him, and then he bites his head off. A quick mercy. After the fight, Alex once again falls unconscious, slipping into a pool of blood, which must resemble the one left by Scarlet's dying body. When he awakes in the office again, he has the Founder's Key, and can use it to open a door in Town Hall. The pedestal in Town Hall has a unique-looking cross on it. The circular halo is similar to the Celtic cross. The circle has long been a symbol of the sun in the west, and there's a variant of the cross called the Sun Cross, which includes just a cross inside a circle. The small lines crossing the four arms of the cross resemble the Jerusalem cross, used heavily during the various crusades. Together, you can interpret it as a symbol of sacrifice and death, associated with the sun and with holy wars. Inside the secret room of the town hall, Alex finds another cross. which contains within it a unique weapon. It's called the ceremonial knife, implying it had a role in the ceremonies of the cult, something like an athame, a knife used in magical traditions in the West. This knife has many applications besides combat. It opens quite a few doors, and its appearance is similar to an item from Christian myth. The crossing lines on the knife, like rope tied to the blade, and its long, thin blade divided by a pole, resembles designs of the Spear of Longinus, said to have been used by Roman soldiers to pierce the side of Christ and ensure he was dead. That makes this a weapon, a key associated with death and sacrifice, with ensuring the ceremony has been successful. On the knife blade are carved symbols, some of which also appear on the halo of the sun. On the top, the symbol for the planet Venus and the zodiac sign for Libra, then the sign for Pisces and an alchemical symbol that could mean salt. Another which could refer to the symbol for Jupiter or the alchemical symbol for red wine. After obtaining the knife, Alex moves forward until you arrive back in the Founder's Garden, climbing into one of the locked mausoleums. The knife unlocks the door, associating it with the very graves which hold the founding families. The next destination is the Shepherd House, where Alex finds a locked box with the family crest on it. Inside is a letter from his father and a map of Silent Hill, as that's where the man was going. Alex confronts his mother, and the confrontation leads into an attack from the cult, and a transformation into the nightmare world. This section is called Hell House, and the name refers to the real-world practice among evangelical Christians of creating a haunted house-style attraction meant to scare children away from what they consider vices. 4 puzzles lock the door out of the house, like the 4 members of the Shepherd family, the 4 families of the village, the 4 elements of magic. Once the front door is locked and transformed, 4 symbols appear at each corner of the door, and they light up one by one as the puzzles are solved. The top right appears to be the sign for Virgo, the zodiac sign of the Virgin, related to the Virgin Mary, intended possibly to relate to the puzzles around Lillian, but the sign lights up when the metal puzzle is completed, associating it with Adam. The top left symbol lights up when the mass puzzle is completed, associating it with Lillian. The bottom left might be the alchemical symbol for coagulation, the process of becoming thickened, insoluble. It lights up when the doll puzzle associated with Joshua is completed, perhaps an inference to the transformation his body undergoes in death, buried underwater. The puzzles spread throughout Alex's childhood home all relate to his family and his time living there. It's a unique level, one of the few in the series to deal so immediately with something so human, the house we grew up in and the parents who raised us. These themes are in all the games, but this game takes the actual house and makes it a level, and I really like that. It's similar to Silent Hill 4. It takes a place that's meant to be comforting and turns it dark. The mask puzzle, involving a corpse-like figure and 3 masks, relates to Alex's mother, a reserved figure who held her true feelings at bay. The corpses are tied to a cross, originally a torture device designed to slowly kill, now a religious symbol of sacrifice. On one side, the mask she used to hide her pain. On the other, the mask that represents her heart laid bare. 3 masks, named the indifferent, frowning, and angry masks, are found in the house. The angry mask is found in the living room. Examining it, Alex says it resembles his mother, and she looks disappointed in him. The indifferent mask is in the bathroom, and it also resembles her. Cold and emotionless like always, Alex says. The bathroom is the place most associated with water in the house, and in one ending, it's the place where Adam drowns his son. The indifferent mask, representing her resignation to the family's role in the ritual, is found in the same place the ritual would have occurred. The frowning mask is in the kitchen next to a weird fleshy hole. In a more traditional household, which this family seems to be, the kitchen is the mother's place, her kingdom in the house, and it is where her inner and true feelings are found, where she expresses her actual thoughts. Alex says it looks as if her face is frozen in a state of perpetual sadness. The indifferent is the mask she wears on the outside. She seems uncaring, unattached to Alex. The inner feelings are her frowning face. She's unhappy, perhaps displeased, but not so much so that she is angry. She may not like the ritual or her husband's position, but she isn't angered by it. All in all, she's a detached mother, protecting herself by avoiding feeling anything at all. The second puzzle in this level involves the shared bedroom Alex and Joshua had. A note on the wall reads, "Nobody saw when you were crying on your bed. I wanted to help you, but I hid myself instead. The ticking of a clock, then suddenly not. Fate left me here, in shadow I will rot. Under my covers the darkness kept me in. Only the daylight can save me from my sin." This poem, written from Joshua's point of view, portrays the twisted emotions between the two brothers. Their relationship is not a happy one, and a hint of that discord is found in the drawings Joshua creates, which also includes notes, one of which includes the line, "You are your brother's keeper." Your brother's keeper is a famous biblical line taken from the story of Abel and Cain, the brothers who are the source of the first murder. After Abel, in his jealousy, has killed his brother Cain, he is asked where Cain is by God. He replies, "Am I my brother's keeper?" The brother he kills happens to be a shepherd. The two boys shared a room. If Alex were crying on his bed, only Joshua would see. The clock, which isn't ticking, refers to 2:06, the stopped time, which we later learn is when Joshua died. Fate left me here in shadow, referring to the bottom of the lake, and comparing it to the bed covers he used to hide under, to hide from Alex's suffering, from the true state of their family. Hiding under covers being a typical childhood way to hide from monsters like the boogeyman. In this puzzle, Alex must enter the bathroom, the possible place of his death, and retrieve Joshua's stuffed rabbit toy from the full bathtub, symbolically saving Joshua from his watery grave, setting it in the window to dry. In the attic is the third puzzle set. A retired soldier, Adam is associated with war and the military, and this puzzle requires finding 3 military medals and placing them on a jacket that resembles Alex's. In a memo found during this section, it's revealed Adam was discharged from active duty and had received 3 medals during his time in the service. The Purple Heart, awarded to those wounded or killed during service, the Silver Star, awarded for valor in combat, and the Good Conduct Medal, awarded to any active duty member who served 3 consecutive years of honorable and faithful service, implying they received no punishments or infractions during that time. In the other world, the medals become twisted versions that reflect the opposite intended meaning. One is the Heart of Darkness, a reference to the novel by Joseph Conrad, awarded for permitting others to suffer. Another is the Fallen Star Medal, awarded for dereliction of duty. The last is the Vile Axe Medal, awarded for atrocities committed, a medal which resembles the boogeyman's head. The last puzzle involves Alex in a distant way. A memory shown when Alex receives the knife reveals a bit of the isolation of his childhood. Spying on his father in secret in the basement, being told to leave. Now upon returning, Alex finds a monster in the room. A schism, the monster with a split head, and must find and retrieve 3 knives in the house. One is a cleaver, another is a butcher's knife, and the third is the boogeyman's knife. The first 2 are associated with butchery, tools used to cut bodies into pieces. The last, of course, belongs to the boogeyman, and further reinforces the connection between Alex and the monster. While in the house, you can find a repeat memo inside Alex's room, the one referring to Patient 206 and a possible lobotomy from the beginning of the game, reinforcing the association between it and Alex. Once the puzzles are complete, Alex is able to leave. He is temporarily reunited with Elle and Wheeler, and they decide to take a boat to cross Toluca Lake and enter Silent Hill. They are attacked, and Alex once again falls unconscious, only to wake in Silent Hill, this time presumably in the real version. To reach the next objective, Alex must make his way to Toluca Lake and Power once he's obtained the key from a ruined building nearby. Once again, we're entering a place associated with water and with the lake. Here, Alex will have to manipulate the valve system to deactivate the power and make his way forward. This involves crossing through another graveyard, which also has a garden in it, like the one in Shepherd's Glen. This game associates gardens and graves. In fact, there are multiple gardens in D'Argento Cemetery, likely named for the horror film master Dario Argento. There's the Moon Garden, the Sun Garden, and the Janus Garden. In that area, you can find a statue of Janus, the two-faced god of beginnings and endings, of doorways and duality. From here, the next area is Overlook Penitentiary. This is the location dedicated to the third murdered child, Nora. Unlike the other two, she likely did not die here, but followed her mother across the lake to town. The location is still apt. The child, suffocated by her mother, attacks inside the gas chamber where executions would occur. Each monster's level has been a place associated with them. The hotel where Joey's father was so frequently. In the garden Joey loved to tend, the earth he was buried in. Scarlet in the doctor's office, the bed she was tortured in. This final location is connected to the overall theme of the monsters: retribution, punishment of a crime, the children acting as judge and executioner for the parents who murdered them. The prison is where the guilty reside, even when they don't believe they should be there. And while the mayor and Dr. Fitch showed at least some remorse, Judge Holloway shows none. It's also an ironic reversal. She is a judge, after all. It has been her duty to condemn the condemned, to render judgment and send others to jail. In this level, she is the one imprisoned as punishment for her crimes. She's not the only mother who is imprisoned here. This is where Alex is reunited with his own mother, who is tied up to a torture device, a cross. The cross of old was famously a method of killing criminals. Though not the primary actor, Lillian is still guilty of abuse and neglect for the fate of her children. She's being slowly stretched in half, split in two like so much else in the game, and the player is given the choice whether to kill her or not. The choice is meant to represent whether Alex has forgiven his mother. If he has, he shoots her to end her suffering quickly and save her pain. If he has not, he allows her punishment to continue to its bitter end. She must suffer the consequences of her actions. The next section involves a puzzle involving 3 riddles to solve. The dials, which must be turned to the right answer, show 5 different options with a pentacle in the center, a symbol associated with the Western magical tradition. The riddles relate mostly to the concept of death. One asks what it is that a man devises but does not want, what the man who bought it does not use, the man who uses it does not realize. The answer is a coffin. Another is the typical nothing riddle. What man loves more than life, what poor man have, etc. The last line says, it is what each man carries to his grave. Both puzzles reinforcing the idea of the grave itself, of the final resting place, and the person being buried's lack of awareness. Solving the puzzles properly lifts the cage out of the way, allowing Alex to jump into yet another gaping hole in the ground. Here we find the end of the section, where Margaret Holloway is waiting. Though Judge Holloway has been captured and is completely at the mercy of the monsters, she is not attacked until Alex and Wheeler arrive, and he presents her with the locket. It was kept by Elle, who told Alex she found it in her mother's room when Nora disappeared, a subtle, dark hint. Once again, Alex is connected to the violent power seeking justice in the game. As she leaves, Holloway turns and smiles, our first hint that something is very wrong with her. The monster is named Asphyxia, a term relating to the state of suffocation. It appears as a centipede-like creature made of female bodies, all attached to one another, hands covering her mouth. She has no feet, only dozens of arms and hands covering her whole body. In a later scene, a flashback reveals the judge strangling Nora with her bare hands. These dozens of hands represent her mother's terrible grip. The bug-like nature of her design is intended to draw on her love of Alice in Wonderland, which is called her favorite book. It connects her to Alessa, another abused daughter who escapes into fiction and creates monsters based on them. Nora is also the only child killed by her mother, who is revealed to be a devout extremist, making her and Alessa very similar. She begins to suffocate should you reveal her mouth, a reversal on her method of death. As Joey was killed by earth and Scarlet by fire, Nora was killed by the third element, air. specifically the lack of it. The battle ends and Alex sees Joshua and chases after once again. This leads us into a surreal area, a large otherworld section that feels like a dream. It ends with a large church, reminiscent of the church from the film, a Gothic cathedral with a rotating fan where a traditional rose window would be. Inside, it has many of the features of a Catholic church: a confessional, a baptismal font, and a tabernacle, a sacred box which holds the Eucharist. In the Order Church, there's a box-shaped object in the wall along with the organ, and it is this tabernacle which is central to the area's puzzles. It involves finding plates representing certain words and placing them in the grooves on the wall, which opens the way forward. While exploring the area seeking these plates, the player finds many other interesting details, including a set of 3 pieces of a painting of a man, a woman, and a tree. It's a repeating motif in the game. The woman's painting appeared in the hotel earlier, and it's called The Rites of Spring. In the center is a tree, on either side a naked man and woman, clearly pulling on the Garden of Eden imagery. The woman holds a bouquet of white flowers and a veil. When Alex examines the image, he says the woman seems similar. The two are meant to be his parents divided by the tree. The father on one side is tied up in the roots. His relation to a founding family has caught him in this trap. The mother, innocent, as of yet, holding lilies. Between them, the tree is ancient and dying, according to Alex's examination. The name Rites of Spring calls upon ideas of pagan fertility rituals and the Easter holiday that was created from them. It is also similar to the name of a Russian ballet, the Rite of Spring, the story of a dancer who is chosen as a sacrifice for the spring season and dances until she dies. A piece of concept art from the ballet resembles the tree in the game's painting. These 3 paintings can be cut in half by Alex's knife. Only the man's painting must be cut, as it contains the tree plate. It correlates to the word desire, perhaps reflecting that bloodlines are passed down through acting on desire, and that led to the situation the town is in. In the hotel, Alex had to cut his mother to proceed, and later in the prison she is killed, cut in half. Now Alex is cutting his father in half, and it won't be long before the pattern continues. If he cuts the tree, a swarm monster is revealed, hinting at the rot that exists at the root of Shepherd's Glen, this failed Garden of Eden. In another area, the player finds the baptismal font, a container of water, where a person is meant to be baptized. Thus far, we've seen a child killed by earth, fire, and air. The only element left is water. In this context, the baptism is a frightening thing. Inside the font, on top of a corpse, the player finds the chalice plate. In Catholic tradition, the chalice is a cup used for the consecrated wine of the Eucharist, and is associated with the final supper before Jesus' death. It's interesting that this chalice, meant to hold blood, is found in the font, meant to hold water. It brings to mind a certain quote, "Blood is thicker than water." That's unfortunately not true in Shepherd's Glen. The word it correlates to is sacrifice, obviously connecting to the blood the chalice is meant to hold, the blood of Christ. The candle plate is found on the opposite side of the church. To obtain it, the player must find the unlit candle and place it before a statue of a crying woman. Upon placing the candle, the statue's arms will move, revealing its crying face. Legends of crying statues are common in Catholic tradition. The candle is likely intended to be a votive candle, used in the Catholic tradition as an offering during prayer. The word for the candle is sorrow, relating to the statue. It's possible this represents the sorrow Alex's parents felt for their fates, even the prayers they may have offered for their child, even as they continued down a dark path. The sword plate is the simplest of the 5 to obtain. It's found on the floor above the organ in front of a stained glass window. The scene depicted is of a knight being stabbed from behind by a monster with a spear. It is an execution. The word associated with the sword is vengeance. These are dire hints at events to come, even showing someone standing on the left mourning the victim. Once Adam takes the plate, he is attacked. Like the scene in the hotel, he falls again, pushed by the Siam, the figure that recalls his mother and father. The last plate is the kneeling man, found in the confessional after Alex speaks to the disembodied voice inside. It's the second time a ghostly voice seeking forgiveness has sought Alex out, and this particular scene mimics the one in Silent Hill 3, another game about vengeance. Alex is given a choice, similar to the one for his mother, to forgive or not. This plate is named for penitence, and the voice is undoubtedly Alex's father, Adam, whose fate is the focus of this level. Two different notes can be found inside the church, both of which relate to guilt and grief. One of these is a portion of a hymn. It reads, "Where shall my wandering soul begin? How shall we all to heaven aspire?" The line is from a real Christian hymn, named for its first line, and the rest of the words reflect the sense of being trapped and guilty, in need of rescuing. "Come, O my guilty brethren, come, groaning beneath your load of sin. He calls you now, invites you home. Come, O my guilty brethren, come." The feelings in the song of being lost and afraid also relate to the children themselves, who have, by their parents' actions, been sent to hell. How will they ever be set free? Another quote found in the church is a biblical one from Psalm 1:1. "Blessed is the man who does not tread the path of the wicked, or stand in the way of sinners, or sit in the seat of mockers." It's strangely similar to a cult note found at the end of the game. "Do not keep company with those who have not faith, for what is there in common between righteousness and evil, or light and dark?" Where one implies that the righteous are those who avoid those that commit evil, the other implies that the evil to avoid is non-believing. In relation to Adam Shepard, Psalm 1:1 decries the man's actions. "You cannot be a good man and do bad things, no matter the intent behind the actions. Murdering your son is a sin, and so a man who does so is a sinner. Blessed is the man who does not tread that path." And while in the end Adam did not tread it, it wasn't from his own efforts. Joshua dies in an accident, and his death sets off a chain of events. Some seem to interpret his actual death as the reason for the curse and the events of the game. I think it's more likely it stems from Adam's choice, given the focus on it. Judge Holloway blames him, and Adam himself disappears, trying to set things right. Having already lost one son, Adam could not bring himself to kill another, and his choice ends the ritual. Joshua's name shares a root with Jesus. Many of the game's themes and symbols tie into the crucifixion and the sacrifice of Christ. While that generally connects with the sacrifice of the children, the element of redemption is also at play. In Christian tradition, humanity is damned due to the original sin, when Adam and Eve tasted the apple in the garden. Adam's sin condemns mankind. Jesus' death redeems it. Consider that Alex's name is derived from Alexander, which means defender of mankind. Joshua's death leads Adam to reconsider his actions, and he chooses to spare Alex, redeeming his sinful behavior, saving mankind. It also happens that the root of Alex's name is shared with another Silent Hill character, Alessa. Her root name is Alexandria. Finishing the plate puzzle opens the way, the giant organ sliding out to reveal Adam tied to two poles. During the scene, the reveal that Alex was in a hospital, not at war, appears, and Adam gives Alex a ring, the family ring associated with their role in the cult. It is then that the boogeyman appears. Like all the previous instances of monsters appearing, when Alex arrives with an object belonging to the murdered child, but in reverse. Adam presents the object, and the monster kills him without being faced by Alex or fought in combat. Once again, he watches as a parent is split in half. Ultimately, in spite of their guilt and their grief, Adam and Lillian Shepard are at fault and in need of judgment, in terms of the game's logic. The monsters here clearly don't believe in merciful judgment. They have suffered damnation, so must their tormentors. And the fates of Lillian and Adam have been hinted at all along, even in the simplest things, like their voices. Both of Alex's parents are voice acted by the same actors who voice the major antagonists. Al Bandiero is the voice for both Adam Shepard and Curtis Ackers, and Elizabeth Lambert is the voice for Lillian Shepard and Margaret Holloway. After the monster leaves, Alex can keep moving into the church and then the underground, using a mining suit to disguise himself. It doesn't last long, however. In the elevator, Curtis recognizes him by his dog tags, calls him Soldier, and knocks him out. This is the final time Alex falls under and wakes back up. He is trapped, held captive by the last of the four parents, Judge Holloway. The final reveal is here, and it's a lovely scene. A twist that was evident the further you went, but becomes crystal clear now. Holloway is an incredible villain, truly believing in her cause, with an aesthetic and style like an evil suburban mother. Her last name, Holloway, comes from a place name referring to those living near sacred places, the Hollow or Holy Way. It's the same name as the game's church. She is, of course, killed with a gruesome death that could fit into any Saw or Final Destination movie. That's honestly something I love about the game, how American horror it is in the good way, violently bloody with typical suburban characters trapped in an evil cult. It could easily be an 80s movie, but it has more depth in its intricate layers, and I find it a shame we didn't get more in this style, because it really could have been cleaned up into something great. This level involves exploring the underground beneath the church, a sprawling prison full of torture and death. Given the narrative is that order has vanished in Silent Hill and Holloway wants to revive it. Presumably this is a former church that was abandoned that she reclaimed. This might imply kidnapping and torturing people has long been an order staple, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Death and pain are part and parcel of this tradition. A note on the cult reads, "Every child born of the flesh bears the filth of the flesh that created it. The lives of the impure are steeped in filth, and their deeds and words spread filth through the world. Even death is not enough to cleanse generations of this filth. The world is unclean, and only suffering cleanses it of filth, including that which is inherited from your parents." Exploring the level, Alex has the chance to save both Wheeler and Elle. Wheeler is optional, involving giving an item to save him, and it's the last of 3 choices that relate to the ending. The first 2 related to forgiving his parents, reveal whether or not he can let go of his past. The last is about compassion, if he can feel and care for others. This final choice is one that reveals whether the monstrous treatment he has suffered has made him into a monster himself. Alex fights Curtis and kills him during this section. The last of the major antagonists is gone, but we're not done yet. Alex is still looking for Joshua, the last piece of the puzzle we don't have, since he isn't meant to be dead. The final stretch has one more puzzle relating to the founder families, a giant wheel that must be properly arranged. Along the wall are the contracts between the families and their god, depicting the methods of death, each tied to an element: earth, water, air, and fire, and each given a role in the cult. The shepherds are the keepers of arms, the military might. A shepherd is meant to protect his flock, and the element is water. As the enemy is the town across the lake, the water would be their battleground. Their symbol is the pitchfork, related to the symbol for Neptune. It's taken from the halo of the sun, and the symbol there is from the diabolical pack of Urbain Gautier, a man accused of making a deal with the devil. The pact presented as evidence had this symbol as the devil's signature. The Fitch family is the performer of rites. They are meant to be sacred, holy figures, perhaps like priests, which relates to the role of doctor. Many traditions around the world have associated medicine and holy ritual, and often doctor and priest have been one and the same. The eye is their symbol. The circle and dot are the planetary symbol for the sun, and the image represents knowledge and all-seeing omniscience. As a charm, it is a protection against evil, perhaps connected to the doctor-priest's role in keeping harm away from people. Blood, the source of life, is long associated with religion and medicine, particularly in bloodletting, when the loss of blood was considered a medical treatment. The Holloways are the keepers of lore, meant to collect history and work as judges of the town. Their symbol is the scales, long known as a symbol of justice, and the description of the method of death is the noose. a reference to the method of execution often enforced by judges, representing suffocation. Then the Bartlett family, the executor of laws, meaning they are the mayors who run the government of the town. The earth beneath them is their element, representing the land of the town the mayor rules. The symbol, a triangle with a line and some waves, is a derivative of a few symbols from the halo, and likely meant to refer to the alchemical symbol for earth, which is an upside-down triangle with a line running through it. The outer circle contains the symbols related to the families. The inner circle represents the methods of death, and they must be matched, in a way reinforcing the pact the families made by forcing them to present it this way before entering the lower crypts. Unlocking the door reveals the crypt inside, where Alex finds the bodies of previous sacrifices. The Shepherd family grave reveals the truth. It is his name, not Joshua's, that is written there. This implies the sacrifice is chosen and set in stone long before the ritual, as the name is already engraved, the equivalent of buying the gravestone before the death. Alex truly has been living as a dead man, as have Nora, Joey, and Scarlett, treated either as invisible ghosts by their parents, or as little pets who are cared for and then put down. This truth reveals the final boss, a representation of Joshua. Up till now, the monsters have been representative of the children meant to be sacrificed, including the boogeyman as Alex's monster. Holloway and Curtis were faced and killed. The threat of the cult is over. The last sequence is all about Joshua and Alex, the remnants of anger and suffering between them, which now must be exorcised. Joshua is still in the dark, in the water. He is inside the monster, in the water of its womb, and only killing it will set him free. The monster's name is amnion for amniotic fluid. It resembles a great spider, similar to a picture taken by Joshua and found earlier in the game. This monster has strange metallic legs. These metal pieces may represent the debris and trash that can be found in the lake. There's also a terrible piece of equipment attached to its body by the mouth and genitals. It is an internal womb, cycling fluid, representing the water Joshua is trapped in and the enclosure of Shepherd's Glen as a whole, a town that was cut off, protected from the outside world until the failed ritual forcibly tore it open. In the end, Alex finds Joshua and begs forgiveness. He leaves behind the family ring that led to Joshua's death, in both the sense that they fought for it, representing the way discord had arisen between them because of their family, and because the ring represented the cult and the pact, which would have ended one of their lives eventually. He also leaves the flashlight, the light which has guided his way, in the same way Joshua himself led us here to the truth. Josh has been the good and the bad, the helper and the danger, a divided role just like all the other divisions of the game. In the end, Alex is subjected to one of a few fates. If he is unable to forgive his parents, he becomes a monster. A literal one, as two boogeymen place a helmet on his head and he is transformed. As the boogeyman is the monster that kills his father, the way that the transformed children killed their parents, this may imply that the monstrous state is a result of the children's inability to forgive. Having been murdered, they demand vengeance and become monsters to ensure it happens. Alex, unable to let go, has become one as well. The happy ending is Smile, referring to the camera which Joshua carried everywhere. A bonus scene shows Joshua as a ghost taking a picture of his brother, implying the spirit is at peace and forgives Alex. This is the ending in which Alex also forgives his parents. He is reunited with Elle, and they leave the town. If Lillian is forgiven and Adam isn't, and Alex does not save Wheeler, Alex awakens in the bathtub to find his father attempting to drown him. While as an idea, I find it interesting, its execution just doesn't work with the rest of the story. Adam claims Joshua is going to continue the family legacy, but Joshua is dead. And how is Adam now alive? Was all of this just a dream? It's not well integrated into the narrative. I don't think it fits well. The game also has a fun UFO ending. Unfortunately, the ending is not locked behind a second playthrough, which is a shame. It's a bad idea for a game like this to have a goof ending available for your first experience, That gives it a bad vibe for me, but it's always fun to have goofy endings in Silent Hill. The last ending, in which you don't kill Lillian, you forgive Adam, and save Wheeler, leads to Alex waking in the hospital, back in the beginning, being wheeled down the hallway. It's my favorite, in part because it's the ending I received when I first played it. My reaction to Lillian's choice was the idea I could never bring myself to shoot my mother. I didn't understand it was meant to be a mercy. So I got this ending, but I really think it makes a lot of sense when compared to the pieces of the puzzle that don't fit in Homecoming. The design of Silent Hill's town, the dreamlike sequences, the way certain people appear and disappear. It all fits if this is some kind of vision Alex is experiencing while still trapped. That's not to say I think the events aren't real. This is Silent Hill, and reality is subjective. The first game presents us with a story where our protagonist could have been dead the whole time. Alex, too, might have fallen into a deep depression after his brother's death, entering a semi-unconscious state while hospitalized. And eventually, as Silent Hill takes over the town of Shepherd's Glen, his spirit is drawn back to it, as are the dead children, all seeking vengeance on their parents. The ending is tragic because it ends with Alex suffering at the hands of a man who resembles his father, still trapped in the hospital, trapped in the nightmare. But for a horror game, I find it fitting. The hell that Shepherd's Glen has created for Alex is not over. But for the town, the nightmare has ended. The themes of guilt and freedom run rampant. In killing the cult leaders and the monster, everyone in Shepherd's Glen is free of suffering. The rituals are at an end, and the town is no more. No other families will have to kill their children. The spirits of the children are set free. Alex's actions free an entire town from a nightmarish way of living, though the only freedom they have is found in death. This is a game that suffers for its name, the Silent Hill in the title, placing it among giants that invite comparison. That, in addition to the game's many references to other titles, and its obvious parallels to the plot of Silent Hill 2, are inevitably going to invite criticism, because the game simply isn't polished enough to be able to stand up in Silent Hill 2's shadow. But if you take that comparison away, if you evaluate the game on its own merits, strengths, and weaknesses, you find a solid experience, with some really incredible well-thought-out lore, some haunting level design and monsters, and a lot of gruesome visuals. It's not every video game from the 2000s that goes so hard on the vaginal and birth imagery in such a visceral degree. The thin characterization of its protagonist, the combat, which is controversial but not bad, it really just needed some difficulty levels, and the plot twists, which were too similar to Silent Hill 2 to be ignored, are definite flaws, but there is a lot more meat on this bone than it gets credit for, in my opinion. I still really love this game, and I honestly hope we see more of it someday. Perhaps a modern port, an updated remaster, maybe even a reimagining. On my list of games that would benefit from a retread, Homecoming, as well as Downpour and Silent Hill 4, are definitely on the list. Origins doesn't need a remake. I like it for the mess that it is, and I don't want the first game's plot to be redone a fourth time. In that case, just remake the first game finally. Thanks for watching. Until next time.